mentioned in a recent video that I struggle with ambiguity and contradiction. This is a bit of a problem, as marketing is riddled with those things. Something that makes perfect sense in one context can be a disaster in another. So if you're in possession of a brain that insists on making sense of everything, understanding why these contradictions exist is essential, if only to protect your already fragile state of mind. So here are 3 contradictions that once brought me out in a rash, but for which now I feel nothing but calm. The first relates to brand versus sales. David Ogilvy once remarked that if it doesn't sell, it isn't creative. But does that mean that brand advertising is a waste of time? Or that if our content strategy doesn't deliver a return in the first 6 months, we should just give up? Well, it's certainly true that those that adopt a sales mentality tend to do very well. They understand how to create compelling messaging, how to heave the customer through the sales journey, and how to isolate and test variables so they can double down on what works. Yet it's also true that those that take brand and content to the extreme tend to do well. They focus on solving problems for their audience, developing that audience into a community, and not even worrying about the monetization of that community until it's sufficiently engaged. By which point their cost per acquisition is likely to be a fraction of that achieved by their sales-obsessed counterparts. The takeaway here is, don't get caught in the middle. Be clear on what you're doing and why, then execute emphatically in that direction over and over again. The second apparent contradiction relates to digital versus offline. Everything we do now is digital first, and for good reason. Yet it's also true that offline marketing has gone through something of a renaissance. Billboard advertising, tube advertising, radio, direct response mail. These supposedly outdated techniques are in many cases achieving a greater return than ever before. But how can both of these things be true? Well, it's a simple fact that the majority of channels are now digital, and those digital channels offer benefits of insight, speed, and scale that you simply don't get with the offline. Yet for that very reason, the offline has become the periphery, and that means less competition. It also means greater impact for the very reason that it is inefficient. We call this costly signaling, the idea that ads are trusted more when they appear to have come at significant expense. So the core of your strategy is likely to be distributed digitally, but do leave room for testing 2 or 3 offline ideas. One of them may just be your biggest win of all. Finally, the third relates to pricing. You've probably heard people talk about avoiding the race to the bottom, and it is indeed the laziest form of marketing. It undermines pretty much all of your other product messaging and often annihilates any scope for profitability. Yet walk into any supermarket and you'll see that it's as rampant as ever, for the simple reason that it works. Of course it does. Just like luxury goods, bargains give you little hits of dopamine. It's the reason why every shopper, no matter how affluent, always knows where the discounted food section is, even though all it does is encourage us to buy things that aren't on our list and we definitely don't need. 28 pence vegan toad in the hole. Where have you been all my life? The key here again is not to get caught in the middle. Be expensive or be cheap. And if you're the latter, then ensure you've got an operational edge so you can maintain it, because once you're down there, you're not coming back up. When you understand these rules, you realize they're not contradictions at all, but rather perfectly logical principles for the context in question. And the reason why so often, as the brilliant Rory Sutherland puts it, the opposite of a good idea can be another good idea. See you next time.